Hey, welcome to another episode of MLM Renegade. Today, guys, we've got an interview with Jeff Griffin from Griffin Motivation. I met Jeff, it's been a number of months ago, and immediately as soon as I met him, I knew I wanted to have him on the podcast, and it's taken some time, but I'm excited to finally have him join us. So this interview was a ton of fun, so we'll check it out. So here's the million-dollar question. How are network marketers like us, who've tried everything their upline ever suggested to be successful, and yet still struggled, who grew up with technology and aren't stuck in the 20th century, how are we supposed to grow our downlines and our bank accounts, and yet still have time for real life? My name is J.R. McKee. Join me as we explore how to use 21st century learning and technology to grow our downlines and build lasting wealth. Simply put, this is MLM done different. Welcome to MLM Renegade. All right, well, guys, thanks for joining us today. Really, I'm excited to have Jeff Griffin with us. Jeff is probably one of the most inspirational guys that I have ever had the joy of personally meeting. Jeff and I actually got to spend some time. It was impromptu, playing some games and just kind of chatting in a night here a few months back, and that's where he and I connected. But Jeff is he's a wheelchair athlete. He is actually a wheelchair silver medalist for wheelchair basketball, if I remember correct, from the Paralympics. But that hasn't stopped him from living this incredibly full life. He has 4 children, and he speaks on stages all over the world and talking about, kind of motivation. And, being a motivational speaker, I always think of Matt Foley, the motivational speaker. And so I'm not always big on that title, but Griffin Motivation is his company, and he brings incredible value when he helps people start to think about their mindset and the way that they're actually interacting with the world around him. He's probably one of the most positive people I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. And so, Jeff, hey, man, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, absolutely, JR. Thanks for letting me be a part of your world and the world that your listeners belong to. So thank you so much. Very appreciate it. I know that you mentioned Matt Foley and motivational speaker. That's what most people will describe me. In fact, even my name, the name of my business, Griffin Motivation. But I like to think of myself more of a transformational speaker instead of a motivational speaker.
I like that.
We want to leave people transformed. We want to give them an emotional impact, an emotional experience that can just take them beyond the moment. And if you can get in the zone, as athletes talk about it, or the sweet spot, you can do more in 6 weeks than you can do in 6 months. And so that's what I want to do, is to help people get into that zone so that they can have the results that they are seeking for.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Jeff, I've got a kind of a funny question for you right off the bat that might be a little bit of a curveball. But what is the thing that you've got all day to do something and you literally have nothing planned? What are you going to spend time doing that day? Like my favorite Saturdays in the world are the ones where literally it's like, oh, I literally have nothing to do. The honey-do list is cleared out. I don't have to run kids to basketball or to baseball or to cheer, right? I can do whatever I want with my day. What is that thing for you?
First of all, it is to spend some quality time with my kids. I've learned that I spend time with my kids. I spend time with my wife. I spend time with my clients. But it's just quality time. And I've learned that I need to just, put down the device, put down the book, put down, I'm always involved with personal development. And so if I have nothing to do, it's all about personal development. But what I've learned too is personal development means nothing unless you have somebody in your life to share it with. And so for me, it's putting down the device and being present with first my kids and my wife, and then of course those around me. But yeah, other than that, in between those moments, it's for me, it's reading a nice, good book and learning a little bit more about myself.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about about your backstory. You're in a wheelchair most of the time, although I've seen some video of you like climbing mountains on your own 2 feet. So I got to hear about that too, because I haven't had that explained to me yet, and I'm anxiously waiting for it. But tell us a little bit about you and kind of how you what your approach to the world these days.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that. So JR, I don't know if your listeners, you're obviously your listeners can't see, but I went from 6'1" to 4'7" overnight. And in between football seasons, my dream was to play football in college. I was told all the reasons why I couldn't. You're too short, you're too slow, you're too white. And I've learned that most people place limitations based on their possibilities. And so they'll tell you reasons why you can't, because that's the reasons why they can't.
Dream beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. I call them dream killers and dream crushers and fun killers. Don't be a dream crusher or a fun killer. When's the last time you dreamt in color? When's the last time you've been able to put some things on that blank page, and even if it's black and white? And then when's the last time that you've been able to dream in color? And so that's what I love to do is to get out there and help people dream weave. And we're going to be talking about a few of those things. But I went from 6'1" to 4'7" overnight. The doctors gave me a 0% chance of ever walking, standing, or moving again. Gave me a life sentence from a chair. They gave me a 0% chance of having kids. Some people gave me a 0% chance of getting married, not because of my wheelchair, but just because of who I am. Right? But and I like to say that if I can, you can. And I like to think that I am one of those examples of, dude, if this guy can do it, then I can do it. And I'm telling you, absolutely. But as you mentioned, I've got 4 kids, beautiful kids, a 19-year-old boy, and then 3 girls after that. And a beautiful wife that said yes 20 plus years ago. I don't know how I convinced her to say yes. I don't know how I convinced her to stay with me all these years.
You're a great salesman, apparently.
Yeah. But I'm hoping what your listeners can take away from this is just because it is doesn't mean it has to be. I don't know if you've ever heard that before. People are like, hey, it is what it is, Griff. It is what it is, Utah. I apologize for the noise behind me, but when people say it is what it is, I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It is what it is, but it doesn't have to be. And so if that's one thing that people can take away is just because it is doesn't mean it has to be. And that's what we do is we help people solve the impossible.
I love that. And oftentimes I've definitely caught myself saying exactly that. It is what it is. And I think that daring to dream, and that daring to, like you said, kind of dream in color is something that far too often we're afraid to do, because everybody's afraid of failure at one level or another. And if you're failing in your own dreams, I'm not sure there's a worse form of failure personally. And it's that fear that drives us. And so often, really, once we get past that fear and get over that, it becomes a source of strength. I'm a big fan of Ryan Holiday. His books, The Obstacle is the Way, is one of my favorite books I've ever read. And a lot of times, his main premise for that is very stoic philosophy, but his main premise is the thing that's stopping you from doing what you want to do is actually the thing that's going to make you do what you want to do. And it like getting past that, you push the boulder up to the top of the hill, so you're actually strong enough to be at the top of the hill.
Right.
So, yeah, that's fantastic.
I love that. In fact, one nugget that I want to share with your listeners, and you mentioned it, but just throw it out there, JR. What's the opposite of success?
Stagnation, maybe. I don't know. That's a trick. People would say failure, but
right. And I was going to say the majority of your listeners, the majority of people I talk to, especially those people who aren't consciously into the personal development or leadership development, the majority of the time, the answer is the opposite of success is
failure.
failure. And I don't know anybody who is successful that hasn't failed. And so that's one thing that we need to do here is we need to have I call it the P squared mindset. It's the possibility principle. And so the P squared mindset gives us permission to fail. And because failures at first or triumphs at last, as long as you just don't quit. And so for me, the opposite of success is to quit and to not try.
Yep.
And so it's part of the process. Failing is part of the process, and it's the process, not the promise, that helps us progress. And so if we think that failure, the opposite of success is failure, then as soon as we fail, right, I didn't find success, I don't want to be, I want to be a failure. I'm like, heck yeah, fail forward, and fail with glory and all that stuff. And I'm always just say, you know what, loud and proud. Whatever you do it loud and proud. And if you mess up, then you mess up loud and proud, because you just learn from it. Unless you're one of those ones that think, oh crap, I failed, and you turn around and you give up and you quit. And so the P squared mindset is one of those things that you've got to develop, that you've got to understand, you've got to know about. And one of those elements of the P squared mindset is to give yourself permission to fail, because failures at first or triumphs at last, as long as you just don't quit.
That's right. No, I love that P squared mindset. Because failure, people are afraid of failure. And when failure, in fact, is the growth engine towards success, like you said, I always see the graphs where people think, oh, okay, this is what success looks like. And you just start, and then there's this upward line to the right to get to success. And then there's like how it really is. And it looks like, somebody's doodled all over the thing before it gets there. And it's so true, and for me personally, 2018 and 2019 stunk. They were bad. Personally, they were not good years. 2020 is looking far better. But at the same time, I'm also not deluded enough to know that there aren't going to be some toe stubs along the way, or some scraped knees and elbows along the way. And, it's getting back up. So,
right. The probability of you having a continual uptick is very, very low, but the probability of you being better and higher than you were at the beginning is extremely high. And I like to always tell people, I'm like, I was given a 0% chance of ever walking, standing, moving my legs again. But since then, like as you mentioned, I just climbed Mount Ben Lomond, which is 9,711 feet. It's right there behind my house, and it took me 3 hours to get up there and 4 hours to get down. 7-hour round trip, and I walked all the way to the top. And so I was given a 0% chance of ever standing, moving, walking walking again. And so that's one of my main messages that I share in my speeches. Is this idea that I don't know if you've ever been given a 0% chance by somebody else, or if you've given yourself a 0% chance. What we've learned, and what I've learned over these 20 years of research and duplication of this process, is that we can take your 0%, possible, and your 0% chance of never doing something, and turn it into 100% possibility. With just a few things that we're able to give them in the short amount of time. And just to kind of illustrate, I had a company CEO call me up and say, Griff, we want you to come speak to our company. It's in August. It's the mid-year meeting. Our target is $80 million in sales. We're at $35 million, so they're $45 million deficient. We just introduced a new program. The guys aren't picking up on it. Will you come in and just share some of your things, share your P squared mindset, and share some other things as well. I believe that success is a 3-part series, and you got to know what you want. You got to finish what you start, and you've got to celebrate the process. And so we went in there to the company. It was the whole company. So there was a shift getting ready to leave, a shift coming in. And the shift that was getting ready to leave, they're all standing in the back. And I like to say that it was the first speech that I've ever given that I had a standing ovation the whole time. But it was these exact same guys, when I finished my speech, they came up to me and slapped me on the back. The senior VP of sales came up and says, this is exactly what we needed. Long story short, that that small hour investment that they took, they had me come in. Not only did they reach their 45 million, but they exceeded it by 10 million. So
Wow.
it was a fantastic ROI, right? Having me come in there and do what we did for them. And that's just one example that I can share with you. 2 years ago, I went full time doing this. I've been speaking for 12, 15 years now, and I decided to leave the comfortable, consistent paycheck that I was getting. I was making a 6-figure income teaching, and in the high school and college level. But I say it's a calling. I just had this song that sang in my soul that said, you got to get beyond the classrooms, you got to get to the world. And so I left that comfortable, consistent paycheck back in November of 2017. I didn't make a dime until May of 2018. My desire that year, 2018, was to have 26 paid speeches. I ended up with 46 paid speeches, but they were peanuts and they were scraps, and we barely survived that first year. 2019, we had 60 paid speeches. We tripled our business. 2020, I'm planning on tripling it again. And those are the type of experiences that we have. Is the example that I just gave to you, that we go in there and not only do we meet expectations, but we exceed expectations because we just give a simple, proven process that gets predictable results. And I just love it, right? Because so many people are like, I hear so many people say, hey, you got to have a vision, you got to have a dream, you got to know what you want. They never tell you how to do it. It's not binary. And people are like, hey, you got to have this mindset, you got to have this positive mindset, this growth mindset, but it's not really binary, where you can take it step to step. And everyone's talking about this quantum growth as well, but you can't have quantum growth unless you actually have some consistency in what you're doing. And so, that's what we're doing here. 2020, I'm so excited for 2020 and what's in store. And so, and so again, being a part of, your world, it's fantastic.
Well, I appreciate you joining us. As this is invaluable, and I'm already frankly thinking about my own day job and life, and like, okay, where can I get Jeff on some stages here as a as a thank you more than anything, just to help you out, because one of the things, especially being in kind of this world, digital marketing, network marketing, just kind of the world at large, I'm finding that the value that you supply is multiplied back to you. When you're able to give somebody good value, it's amazing how much more, you can be a giver or a taker, and being a giver pays far more dividends than being a taker. And you have to be able to have that, be able to see the forest for the trees a lot of times, because so often we're worried about paycheck to paycheck. The first 9-10 months for you, you were in the trenches worried about life, outside of your business, just, taking care of 4 kids and a beautiful wife. And so those kind of things are hard. And I think so often in my own business, as I'm trying to get things going and really start to see some traction, that's the thing that it's like, okay, how can I provide more value? Because, how can I give more? And, it's funny, I think, one of the key tenets that my dad actually taught me, and Jeff and I share a common faith, but I give offerings monthly. We call them fast offerings, right? And I have found, my dad told me, I was probably in my 20s. He's like, if you want to increase your income, double your fast offering. And I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And then I did it. And suddenly, I had a job that on paper, it said I was supposed to make between $80,000 and $85,000 a year, which was pretty good for a kid who'd, come out of college, right? Yeah. And then I doubled my fast offerings, and that same job provided $150,000 a year. And it's like, oh, so even though I've had a lousy 2018, 2019, guess what I did? I doubled down and tripled down on that offerings, and I know it's coming. Karma is real in that regard. I'm a firm believer in that. So
it really is. What you give is what you get.
yeah.
If you give out doubt, if you give out criticism, you're going to get doubt. You're going to get criticism. If you give out love, you give out offerings. You give out positivity. That's what you're going to get. And if you've never done that before, you're like, that's impossible. That's impossible. And that's what we do. We bridge that gap. I don't know how many of your listeners, including yourself, JR, that you know what to do, but you're not doing what you know. Have you ever been in that boat before?
Yes, absolutely. It's like, oh yeah, I know I should. For example, Jeff and I were talking before. I'm starting a transformation challenge. In fact, one of my last episodes was about my 2020 goals, and I want to get down to 185 pounds. I've written that down on my goals. While we were talking about it, I'm starting that transformation challenge. And one of the things I need to do, quit eating sugar. Like Haribo gummy bears and JR, we're like best buddies. And they're going to have to go by the wayside if I'm going to get to that number. So, but yeah. Yes. No, and it's interesting that you say that, because you're right. So often we know what to do, but it feels like sometimes we don't know how to do it. It's like, okay, I know I need to be consistent at this, but okay, now how do I go be consistent at that? And the how and the what don't always connect. And so
right. No, absolutely. And so if you and take it a step further, or maybe go a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? Instead of right now, go in the past just a little bit further. And that is whenever we want to do something we've never done before, it's always impossible. And so that's why my mission, my business vision is we help people solve the impossible by helping them hear things, see things, and do things that they've never done before. And so if you've never had a positive mindset and you want to do that, you're like, oh, that's impossible. Or if you've never lost, or exercised consistently for so many days, that's something that's impossible. If you want to double or triple your business, but you've never done that before, you're like, that's just impossible. If you want to get married this year and you haven't even been on a date, you're like, that's impossible. And so whenever we do something that we've never done before, it's always considered impossible. But if you'll break it down to the simple, if you'll break it down to the simple, and if you'll understand how we attain things in life, then all of a sudden the floodgates just open up, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. And that's why we call it the endless possibility. That's why we call it the P squared mindset. And so I'm excited. I really am excited to go around there and share some things. And so, for example, JR, there's a lot of people that's listening to this, like, I can't afford to bring Jeff in to have a keynote. And I get that. And so what we're doing now is we're taking the keynote, which is based off of my book called I'm Possible, Desire, Dream, and Do. I believe those three things, desire, dream, and do, are the foundation of every solution. And everybody has a problem. Everyone has a challenge out there, right? And so every problem under the sun has a solution, or it has none. If there be one, hurry and find it. If there be none, never mind it. And so I believe desire, dream, and do are at the foundation of every solution. So if you can grasp what a desire is, we dissect what a desire is. We take a look at the anatomy of a dream. And then, of course, we give some sound tools and skills that will help you accomplish your desire and dreams. And so the keynote's based off the book. And by the way, love the book. Your listeners can get it if they go to my website, griffinmotivation.com. If they put in the coupon code LOVE, we'll throw out some love to your listeners. We'll give you a 50% discount on any of the products. Awesome. You can get my book. You can get my book there. You can go to Amazon and get it, but it's the first edition. And that one's out of print, and I think it's like $25 to get it now. It's almost now going to be. I like to think it's going to be a collector's item. That one that's on Amazon, or you can go to my website, griffinmotivation.com, GRIFFIN motivation, and go to the shop, and then put in the coupon code LOVE, and we'll throw out some love there. But so my keynote's based off the book, and we're putting together a workshop, a leadership workshop. It's based off the keynote. It goes in a little bit in depth on that. Even that might be a little bit too expensive for some of your listeners, but we're also putting together an online leadership course that's based off the workshop. that's based off the keynote, that's based off the book that helped the company, earn $10 million more than they were hoping. And so that's what we're trying to do, is we're just trying to help people solve the impossible.
That's fantastic. So when's the online course launch?
We're 99.9% done with it. I'm just, in fact, I haven't picked a date. Maybe it will be my birthday, February 20th. That will be the public launch date, February 20th. And people can get access to that. And of course, Jeff Hunter, the same guy that we know, Savage Marketing. We'll use some of his techniques on the first 10 that show up or whatnot. But we'll have some fun with that. But yeah, February 20th is when we're going to launch it to the public. It's ready to roll right now, but February 20th.
That's fantastic. I'll be on the lookout for that. I am a consumer of such things, so I'll be looking forward to it. But
awesome.
That's awesome. Jeff, thanks so much for coming on. I think that you've provided some great value. You said something. There was 3 parts. You said, know what you want, finish what you start, and there was a third, and I wrote it down, except I only got 2/3 of it. What was the last one?
Yeah, so success, a lot of people think that there's a silver bullet for success. Do this thing, do that thing. You gotta know what you want. And part of knowing what you want is what we call dream weaving. 10 minutes will change your life. And when I went to Sweden and spoke at their 8th World Congress, only happens every 4 years. They're like Nobel nominees, Formula race car drivers. Anyway, and some guy from Cache Valley named me, Jeff Griffin. And one of the doctors validated all my research these last 20 years. And what it is dream weaving. 10 minutes will change your life. That one's available right now, dream weaving. But what we do here is most people don't know what they want, but they're absolutely clear on what they don't want. And so we flip it on its head, this dream weaving, and when we take you through a little step-by-step process on asking you what you want, and then asking you what you don't want, and then taking what you don't want, and then transferring and translating it over to what you do want. So dream weaving helps you know what you want. The second one is finish what you start. I've got a second book called Endless Possibilities, the 90-day recipe for world record results, kind of based off of, I got 2 Guinness World Records, and how did I get that? And how did I go there? How did I make the Paralympic team? How did I become the 4-time MVP at the wheelchair all-star basketball games? Well, it's that process. It's that endless possibility process. And so that helps you finish what you start. And then the third one is celebrate the process.
Celebrate.
And as I mentioned before, the process is give yourself permission to fail. Be okay with failing. But at the same time, you don't want to continue to, hang all your failures on that little thought. Eventually, you need to master it. Eventually, you need to understand it. I don't want my pilot to fail. I don't want my surgeon to fail. I don't want my web designer to fail. I want, the results. And so, but at the beginning, when you're learning something new, you've got to celebrate the process. And part of the process is I want to celebrate the fact that I'm changing my mindset. I want to celebrate the process that I do believe it's possible when my whole life I believed that it wasn't. And so, we've got some great things that go into that 3-part series.
That's fantastic. So just to recap it, know what you want, finish what you start, celebrate the process. I'm not sure that there is a better way that we could wrap this up. So Jeff, again, thanks for coming on today. Really excited to have you join. Hopefully we can have you come back a little bit down the road. And I really appreciate you hopping on. It's taken us a few months to finally dial this one in. So I'm glad we were able to make it happen.
Yeah, me too. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for listening, and please remember to subscribe. And if you loved us, leave us an awesome review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you consume your podcasts. Now, if you'd like some free training for your team on how your recruiting efforts can be bettered and brought into the 21st century, go to podcast.mlmrenegade.com and get your copy of the Renegade Recruiting Kickstarter.